What we will do is we will go to items that have been pulled from council for discussion during this work session, and then we will go to the briefings that have been posted. Item 55 was pulled. This relates to an ordinance relating to a joint public hearing between the City Council and the Planning Commission for certain changes to City Code. I'll recognize staff on this item to lay it out, and then we'll see what questions council has.
Trish Link with the Law Department. Mayor and Council, item 55, as the mayor said, would authorize a joint meeting. We know there is an Exhibit A that will be attached and will be posted into backup either later today or tomorrow. The Exhibit A will talk about the notice requirements, which we would be recommending at a minimum to be 10 days of notice for publishing in the Statesman, giving notice to the community registry, and then also to give mailed notice to every parcel within the city's zoning jurisdiction.
Members, a couple of people have posted their positions on what we want to do with regard to as we make these proposals for changes to the land development code, how we want to make sure that we have the credibility as we go forward on these with significant, robust, complete, total notice, whatever is the right word. Councilmember Alter, Allison Alter, you had pulled the item. I want to make sure you have an opportunity.
Thank you. So I appreciate my colleagues' comments and the desire for as much notice as possible. I think that's really important. I pulled it in part first because there was no Exhibit A, so I still, frankly, would love to see that in writing to understand, exactly what we're voting on. But I appreciate what you've given us so far. Doesn't sound like you're going to tell me any more than that right now, so I'll wait for it in writing. But I was uncomfortable with not knowing what Exhibit A is, so I appreciate that. And then there are some other pieces here, and I want to clarify. There's nothing in what you just said with Exhibit A that matches the intention that I read elsewhere that was expressed by colleagues that we'd be having this joint meeting, and then there would also be a planning commission meeting, and then there would also be a council meeting. So how is that playing out with this item to ensure that we are not just having a joint meeting and skipping all the other steps?
Council member, the first step in this process would be for council to vote on item 55 to authorize the meeting. If council does authorize the meeting, then the first thing that will happen from a meeting standpoint is we'll have the public hearing, which is be a joint public hearing with the City Council and the Planning Commission. After that public hearing happens, the Planning Commission will take up the item at one of their meetings, and they will make their recommendations to council. And then at a subsequent meeting, council will vote on the amendments.
Okay. Will there be additional notice for any of those meetings?
So the way we're thinking about approaching it is, it's common practice when we have a code amendment or a zoning case where we do dual notice. So we give notice to the Planning Commission and the council meetings. And so in this instance, we would give notice of all three at one time. So we would have the joint hearing, the Planning Commission action day, and the council action date.
Okay. Thank you. But that is that delineated in Exhibit A then?
That will be delineated in Exhibit A.
Okay. And then there are, if you read the ordinance, there are there are parts of that go beyond authorizing the joint public hearing, and I haven't had a chance to talk with you through this, but there's waiving of the code section on amendment review, and I wanted to understand what that meant.
So we would be waiving amendment review as it's established in city code because you will be following this different process. The joint meeting, which our code does not have a process for, and so it's being waived for purposes of allowing for this joint public hearing to happen and the notice that council directs as part of this action item.
Okay, so that is a procedural change, not a substantive change to the process of how amendments to the zoning code happen?
This would be for this joint meeting. So our recommendation at this point is to try this process out and see how it works for the council and for the planning commission and the community. And if council wants to continue doing that, we would actually come back with a full code amendment. But this is for this particular one here right now with the, that we'd be trying it out.
So that anticipated a different question, but my original question was more the waiving of this amendment section is about waiving the process so that we can add this additional step. It's not about waiving the process of only like the planning commission or council can initiate amendments.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. And then I wanted to understand the scope of what will be noticed. There have been lots of land development code amendments that have been initiated by this council, and they're not all included in that. And we, as I understand the impact of all of these things, they all work together. And so, for instance, compatibility is not listed among the things that we're noticing for. So how are we determining what we're noticing for in this notice?
So what we're proposing right now is to take a piece of the home initiative and then also council initiated changes to our occupancy limit over the summer. And those tend to have kind of they're connected to each other in the sense that we regulate the occupancy of each of the dwellings on a property. And it is kind of a bite-sized chunk that we could take that's not so much for everyone to absorb and to kind of process, but it also gives us enough that we are utilizing the joint meeting for a little bit more than just one thing. But there's things that I think go together and they can work together in the code. And so it would be the 3 units by right, creating a 3-unit use, and then our occupancy limits. I know council also initiated code amendments on tiny homes and RVs that may fit into this as well. If not, it will come back on us as not necessarily part of the joint meeting, but potentially in the same timeline.
And so what about, was lot size included in
So
what you're talking about, or?
no, right now what we would be proposing is to allow 3 by right based on our current lot sizes. And then this 3-unit use based on our current lot sizes. We actually will need to do home in 2 phases. So this will be the first phase of it. And then the second phase will be the lot sizes and those changes that go with changing lot size.
Okay. I'm going to have to, think about that. I am concerned that, the challenge really comes when you combine all these pieces together. And I'm not sure that noticing people in one piece of it and leaving out another chunk that's happening is really fair notice of what is being contemplated. If we're, and I'm fine if we're not going to do the lot size, that would be great, but I'm not sure that that's the intention. So I'm going to need to think about.
So what we're recommending to you would not be to take up lot size right now, would be to stick to those 3 units by right and creating the use. And then it will be next year before we can come back with lot size changes.
Okay. And what about compatibility? What is the timing on that?
Oh, I believe it's February or March.
Okay. Again, I'm going to need to do some thinking about that now that I have a better sense of the notice, because I think it's the combination of a lot of things that becomes problematic as opposed to individual pieces in and of themselves. So I'm going to want to think about that, and I may or may not have any suggestions for Thursday once I see the actual exhibit, but I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you. And I just have a couple questions. Do we have a cost estimate for what the notifications will be?
We do not at this time.
Do you know if you'll have one or when that's expected? Is that something you could maybe send in a memo to council just so we could be aware?
We will.
Okay, thank you. And then I noticed, I just looked in the council meeting website, and Exhibit A that you speak about, and that's in the draft ordinance, is not on the website in backup. Do you know when that might be expected for us to review?
I will send it to mayor and council today myself, and then we will have it to the city clerk so that it can be posted.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Poole?
Mayor, I just wanted to give my appreciation to the staff for the really hard work that has gone into getting to this place. We've tried in the past to make some significant changes to the Land Development Code, and it has essentially overrun the community in ways that they couldn't keep up with what we were trying to do. This effort, by taking things in chunks, bit by bit, in a fairly measured cadence, is designed in order to make sure that we do not outstrip the public, because they need to understand the concepts that we're bringing forth and help us with wrestling them into the shape and the size that fits for Austin. Adding a joint hearing with the Planning Commission is something that we've never done in my time on council, and I can't remember when it was ever done by previous councils. Maybe it has been, but it's been a while. And I think it's a really good opportunity for us all to be sitting together and listening to the public come in and talk to us. I like the fact that we are going to bring a group, not everything, but a group of similar type issues at the same time to make effective and efficient use of the cost, both in time and money, for the notification. And it also gives the public an opportunity to view things in context with one another, as Ms. Link had described. So I'm looking forward to seeing the dates. I know it's been kind of a heroic effort to kind of line it all up and have the calendar work. And again, just appreciate everybody's super efforts to get us to this point.
Thank you, Councilmember. All right. Yes, Councilmember Allison Alter.
So I haven't been part of the calendar conversations at all, so do you have the dates? Are those part of Exhibit A?
We would not have the dates. We are working with the clerk's office, and we also need to work with the liaison for the Planning Commission to determine the correct date.
Okay, so this point this week, we're just doing the process, and then we're going to be figuring out the actual date.
Right. So if
Okay, I
the
misunderstood what my
ordinance
colleague said
passes,
then.
right, then we'll sit down with the clerk's office and the agenda office and the Planning Commission liaison and figure out what the right date is.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. The one thing that I might just say in closing this out, because it is new and it's the way this council has been approaching trying to address our housing needs is new, and we're making progress in that regard. It is also, when it comes to how things, Councilmember Allison Alter makes a good point about how things do play with each other as different land development code changes might get made. And from my perspective, and I'll just say it because I think it reflects where the council will go, is that as we consider notice going forward on any of these items that make these kinds of changes, that we are going to, at least my hope is, that we seek robust, complete notice in a way where people feel like we have a credible process. They're not being left out. And frankly, some of the criticism of what's happened in the past has been about notice and how we've approached that. We know where we've made errors. I say we know where errors have been made. I'm not sure the "we" is appropriate there, but I know that errors have been, we know where errors have been made, and we're looking for ways to fix that. So thank you very much. We'll talk again, I guess, on Thursday. Item number 99 was pulled. It relates to a resolution directing the manager to revise and implement certain policies related to training, investigations, and reporting by the Office of Police Oversight. This is the matter we went into executive session on. Councilmember Kelly pulled the item. I'll recognize Councilmember Kelly on the item.
Thank you. And I appreciate the robust discussion that we had in executive session regarding this item. There are several legal concerns that we reviewed, and I am thankful for the author to be amenable to coming forward with changes, and I'll pass it over to him to talk.
Councilmember Cadre, I'll recognize you.
Great. Thanks, Mayor. And thanks, Councilmember Kelly. As it's been stated, had a really robust conversation in the executive session, and we will be looking at bringing a version 2 But I'm excited about bringing forward this item. I think it's an item that it's necessary to bring forward. I think it shows that we're trying to do things right. We're listening to our community, and that when we say something, that we'll do something, we actually do it. The previous council, not this council, are the ones who kind of punted this to the voters and, said we wanted to hear from the voters, and the voters made themselves heard loud and clear. I think it was something 80-20 in terms of the vote for the Austin Police Oversight Act. So, this item that we're going to bring forward, it looks to implement things outside of a meet and confer. And like I said, we are looking forward to bring a version 2 as soon as we can.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other on item number 99? That'll take us to item 101. That's related to a resolution that would direct further exploration of on-site affordable housing at 1215 Red River Street, which is formerly known as Health South. The item was pulled by 2 council members. I'll recognize Councilmember Ryan Alter, and then I'll recognize Councilmember Cadre.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Yes, I pulled this item following our discussion we had at the Housing and Planning Committee, and I wanted to just take a couple minutes here to kind of look back at how we got here. And I think it's really important because it informs a lot of where I'm coming from on what I'm looking to do with this. I was thinking about last night, only 2 council members, Councilmember Poole and Councilmember Allison Alter, were here when this whole process started back in March of 2017. Council then asked staff to evaluate the Health South building for its potential to provide affordable housing in the range of 60% MFI or below, as well as some market rate housing, which sounds very familiar to why we're here today. And when that ask was made of staff, they did a study and they did a cost-benefit analysis. And what they found was that at least twice as many units could likely be provided off-site than subsidizing on-site. Subsequently, ULI did a report showing that Health South was a good option for housing, for affordable housing, but that it would require some subsidy, a combination of tax credits plus additional city subsidy. So if it got 9% tax credits, it would still need $3 million from the city. And after all that, we could build about 100 units of affordable housing on site. Then in October of 2018, Council initiated the solicitation to include a significant emphasis on multi-bedroom housing for households who earn 60% MFI and below, and also with the option to maximize strategic housing blueprint goals through off-site affordable housing options, preferably within 1 mile of downtown. So now, over a year later, in November of 2019, the RFP was issued, and within that RFP, we asked for a unique transaction structure to provide maximum value to the city, including affordable housing, and at least some on-site 60% MFI units or below. The city received 4 responses, and this is what I think is really important that guides some of our discussion today. Of those 4 responses, the Aspen Heights was the highest score. The second place finisher, citing specifically the high cost of construction, said that they could give 50 units on-site and 50 units off-site. The third place response did exactly what is being contemplated under this item. Said separate the site. Put a piece of it as a separate affordable housing development, what we think of as an HFC style deal, 4 stories, pretty much exclusively affordable housing, plus a separate tower that would be mixed use. Under that proposal, we were going to get 80 units on site. We were going to have to utilize tax credits, which means taking tax credits from somewhere else in the city where there would have been affordable housing to do it. And we were going to have to spend some of our either bond dollars or ROTA funds to do that. And that was to get 80 units on site. We then said, okay, Aspen Heights, we like your proposal. You're proposing, at that time, 116 affordable on-site units, both rental and ownership. And we engaged in the exclusive negotiating agreement. It took 2 years, but eventually we reached a master development agreement that was released to us January of this year. And then, of course, in June, we were notified that the terms of the deal were financially infeasible because markets had changed. But I think it's also important to note, even if we look at what was proposed in June, it was for 65 units on site of affordable housing, plus an additional $15 million to spend on off-site affordable housing, whether that was to plug gaps and get a couple hundred PSH units or something else. We were still above what some of the responses were to us in the RFP years prior under much worse market conditions. So then we all passed the resolution back in July to once again, like we did 6 years ago, say we want information on, and we said at least 60% MFI units on site and within the Palm District. And at that time, I had a lot of concerns about, I wanted us to be able to know what were we trading? Could we get potentially affordable housing off-site? And I was told that, well, we included at least in that July resolution. And so staff will look beyond what we've enumerated here. But then when we received our briefing to the committee, Housing and Planning Committee, in those notes, or in the direction from council, it states that council asked us to provide affordable housing scenarios on site and within the Palm District plan. No beyond that. No at least, nothing off site. And so then we received that analysis, and a lot of weight has been placed on the fact that 75% of respondents said they want affordable housing. Of course they do. Everyone in this city wants affordable housing. But that question was not, do you want some affordable housing on-site and some off-site, maybe more off-site? It was just, do you want affordable housing here? Well, of course, if I asked you if you want $1,000, you're going to say yes. But if I said you want $2,000 in a year, there might be a difference. Some people might say, I want it today. Some people might say, I want it later. Right? There's a nuance to this of just saying, do you want affordable housing? So that's where we are today, and that's why I thank you for letting me get here. But it has really, I don't want us to just repeat what we did 6 years ago. Right? Market has dramatically changed today than it was, and once again, we can go through a many years long process and say, and arrive right back here under much worse conditions. So I think it's really important that we have all the options, that we understand if we want some affordable housing on site, what's the trade-off? What are we giving up for that? If we want to maximize affordable housing as a city, you know, I had a meeting with Houston Tillotson about their student affordable housing needs. They said we really need 100 units. Well, if you could get out of this singular project some of the funding to build 100 units, which is well within a mile of Health South, you could potentially solve Houston Tillotson's student affordable housing needs. So I do have a question for the city attorney, because the posting language here states that it's to approve a resolution directing further exploration of on-site affordable housing at 1215 Red River Street and 606 East 12th Street, formerly known as Health South. Would any amendment language discussing off-site affordable housing options be permissible under the posting language here?
Councilmember, to the extent that the posting language talks about on-site affordable housing and you want to talk about the cost of off-site versus on-site, I think that would probably be relevant. Happy to look at that a little bit more.
So if we were to instruct staff to weigh on-site affordable housing, or to do either an RFP or solicitation or just analysis of on-site affordable housing, and separately said, we also want you to do an analysis of if you just made this a maximum mixed-use development, here's what you get off-site, that would be acceptable.
I think
Potentially.
the IFC is asking to look at on-site housing, and to the extent that you need to have a context for that, which also includes looking at the value of off-site housing, I think that fits within the posting.
Okay, well,
Can I, in other words, if we want to, as part of the further exploration of on-site affordable housing, be able to consider the values obtained or the qualities obtained for on-site versus off-site, it would be relevant to, and be something we could bring forward.
That's correct.
okay. Well, I will be honest, I expected you to give me the exact opposite answer. That being said,
That's why we ask questions and get
That's-
answers.
That's right.
Yeah.
That being said, we have been working, just in case you had that exact answer, on some language. And so it's not ready yet. I will hopefully have it by the end of today to post on the message board. But it will very much be in that vein of allowing us to have all the information so that we can make a policy decision of what maximizes this site for the city. And then move forward, hopefully not 6 years from now, just doing something.
Thank you. Councilmember Cadre, do you want to say anything? And then I'll go to Councilmember Kelly.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I was going to say I was going to make a brief comment, but it probably won't be brief.
But, well, by definition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might-
Or
might
in
be-
context, in context.
Might be a little bit briefer
Yeah,
than
yeah,
Ryan's. But we had sent out a message board post yesterday with our fuller explanation, but I just wanted to highlight some points. First, myself and my office are committed to maximizing housing options downtown. My office is exploring ways to maximize housing units downtown for people to live and to generate revenue for our tax base. I believe our downtown should be a downtown for everyone, a downtown that everyone can live in. And truthfully, right now, I don't feel like that's what the Austin downtown is. I think you need a certain level of a privilege to live in it, and I find that odd, and it's not who we should be. I live in downtown, and I see the value in using the specific property at 12th and Red River Street for on-site affordable housing and as much market housing units as possible. And being part of this new council focused on advancing housing for all and getting things done, I'm confident we can move forward toward an approach for the site that will accomplish our goals. Item 101 this week enables the city to further explore on-site affordable housing in more detail for a portion or all of the site through a comparison of units yielded through. 1, staff's proposal of an affordable property on portion of the site, and 2, a hypothetical RFP of the entire site, including other community priorities identified by area stakeholders. Depending on what we learn from the yield analysis, we will then have the opportunity to explore other priorities and possibly revenue generation options for affordable housing from all or a remainder of the site. This resolution does not close the door on exploring other options. And I bolded it in my talking points, so pretend you're seeing that as bolded. It does not close the door on exploring other options. It merely enables staff to provide more detail regarding on-site affordable housing units, a key community and interest and goal in our plans to promote inclusivity, equitable development, and affirmatively furthering fair housing. Once we have more information on affordable housing options on site, we can move toward a fuller vision to accomplish both on-site affordability and a more market-driven strategy on the rest of the site. We're also looking into when and how we can eventually authorize AEDC as lead on the development process for all or the remainder of the property by Q3 of 2024 at the earliest. So to close, this is not a decision. This is an exploration of unit yield. This intention is to lead on what the community asked for, which is on-site affordability, and in no way are we shutting out exploring other options, but rather prioritizing community requests. There are many paths forward, and we recognize that, and we just want to ensure we are prioritizing this path of on-site workforce and affordable housing. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember. I'll go Councilmember Kelly and then Councilmember Poole.
Yeah, so I'll be real brief. I just wanted to let Councilmember Ryan Alter know that I support your amendment, and I'm thankful for the discussion we had yesterday. I think the way that you laid out everything today was wonderful, and it really brought the people in the community up to speed. I've already gotten messages from people about it, so thank you very much for that. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Poole.
You know, poor Health South. We've been kicking this puppy around for probably too long. The goal initially and the through thread has been affordable housing downtown in this innovation district so that people who do the work, the workforce laborers, can actually live and walk to work. And if we once more say, oh no, not here, not now, sometime later, then we will have rolled that ball further down the road. And I admit to a little bit of exhaustion over this topic. We made a big point of pulling this project back into the city so the city would lead on it as opposed to trying to find a private developer to lead on it and us give them subsidies and waivers and the this and the that, knowing that because the city would be in charge, we would be able to do it in an expedited way and hopefully a financially efficient way. And that means that we can have more public benefits from this site. But the bottom line for me is affordable housing on this site. And so I really do hope that we are able to get some closure. Councilmember Qadri, I support what you put up on the message board. I thought it was a good explanation of your position, and you've only been working in these fields for 6-7 months. So I thought you got up to speed on a pretty complicated project really fast, and I would just commend all of our past work and efforts around Health South to everybody that sits on the dais now, that we can actually hopefully get something done there that includes housing our workforce folks right there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Harper Madison.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It is with my great regret that Health South is no longer in District 1 and now is in District 9, but I really appreciate the representation that's coming from the District 9 council member. And I just want to point out, we have over 366,000 people that work in the hospitality industry downtown. So as much as we can accommodate them downtown where they can get to work easily, I support that as much as possible. So I appreciate, generally speaking, considerations around off-site affordable. I don't want to risk any opportunity to accommodate as many of our hospitality workers as possible downtown.
Thank you, Councilmember.
This one will be real short, I promise. I promise, I really do.
Okay.
I feel like it's really important as we have this conversation, we'll certainly have it again on Thursday, that off-site affordability doesn't mean that we're building units in Bastrop or Round Rock or Buda. If we build something half a mile away that's on the bus line where someone can take the bus to their job downtown, and we can do it for twice as many people as we can at the location where they might be able to walk, I think a bike ride or a bus ride for more people to be able to live in the city where they work rather than an hour away by car is that type of discussion we need to have.
Great, thank you. All right, Council, we'll go to items. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Allison Alter.
Thank you. So I know that in prior council direction that Councilmember Tova in particular had championed a priority that many of us share, which is a desire to see how this space could become an asset for childcare and early childhood development. Some of that prior direction included the ask to create a space for an on-site, high-quality, affordable childcare or provide spaces for communal learning spaces, labs, or other spaces. And I just wanted to check with the author if they would be amenable to adding language including the childcare component in this item as well.
Yeah, we would.
Okay, great.
If your office is going to bring something, would love to see it and support it.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else on this item? Great, thanks, Council. I'm going to call up items 102 and 103 together. They were both pulled. They both relate to the Palm District Plan, and they were both pulled by Councilmember Cadre, and I'll recognize Councilmember Cadre.
Our office pulled items 102, 103. Just want to quickly get into it. We'll be posting amendments to the message board later this afternoon regarding item 102, the Palm District Plan initiating resolution. My staff has been working diligently with stakeholders and city staff to make sure we implement tools that preserve and incentivize historical and cultural placemaking in the district. And I guess a quick history lesson. Historically, the area was a stronghold for our Mexican-American community here in Austin, and unfortunately, much of that history has been displaced. And we're committed to do right by this community. So the amendments adjust the timelines regarding the Cultural District Overlay, the Chapter 380 program, and the Location Enhancement Program. We're also working on providing direction to encourage community stakeholders to consider other naming options for the district that highlights both the history and the vision of the district.
Any
Yes.
questions or comments, Councilmember Fuentes?
Yes, can I have staff please join me at the front? I'd like to, colleagues, this Palm District Plan has been in the work for a number of years, and since we do have newer colleagues on the dais, that would be helpful for us to get briefed on the latest. And then I'll have questions afterwards.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council. I'm Stevie Greathouse. I'm a division manager with the city's city's planning department, rather. I'm here to give you a very brief overview of the Palm District Plan. This work really began in late 2019 and involved considerable engagement in 2021 and 2022 that culminated in presentation of a draft plan at a public hearing of the Planning Commission on November 15th, 2022. We previously did provide a fuller briefing on the draft plan at a work session, council work session November 29th, 2022, but as Councilmember Fuentes mentions, many folks on the dais were not there on November 29th of last year. Planning Commission approved the Palm District Plan with recommendations on July 25th after appointing a working group that conducted additional engagement focused primarily on Red River venue owners and provided recommendations to Planning Commission. Next slide, please. Oh, I guess I've got a clicker as well. The study area for this planning process extends roughly from 15th Street to Lady Bird Lake, Trinity, and a line that kind of jogs along Trinity Street to I-35 on the east. This area of downtown is really an epicenter for a number of significant public investments that are anticipated over the years ahead. The Palm District Plan will provide guidance to the IH-35 reconstruction and cap and stitch efforts. It will provide guidance to Project Connect and implementation within this portion of downtown Austin. It will provide guidance to Convention Center reconstruction, to Waterloo Greenway phases 2 and 3, to the Palm School site visioning that is being led by our partners at Travis County, to existing Red River Cultural District, as well as potential implementation of a future Mexican-American Heritage Corridor. It will provide guidance to future expansion of the MS Barrientos Mexican-American Cultural Center. It will provide guidance to the Austin Core Transportation Plan, the future of the Austin Police Department headquarters site, Health South, as was discussed earlier in this meeting, as well as providing guidance to future regulatory changes being led by city departments. The vision of the Palm District Plan is really to provide a vibrant historic hub of downtown where the past is honored, the culture is celebrated, and the future is shaped. And the impetus for this planning really came out of a desire to take advantage of all of the transformative energy that is coming to the district and to ensure that cultural and historic identity of the district is amplified rather than continuing to be obliterated by the changes ahead. And then final slide for this very brief briefing. On Thursday, council will be holding a hearing on the Palm District Plan as an amendment to Imagine Austin under item number 103. The backup for item 103 includes two versions of Exhibit A. Version 1 would adopt the plan, including all Planning Commission recommended amendments. Version 2 of Exhibit A would adopt the plan with Planning Commission recommendations as refined by staff to clarify language, remove redundancies, and remove 2 recommendations. Staff recommends consideration of Exhibit A version 2 on Thursday. In addition, council will be asked to consider approval of a companion resolution related to plan implementation under items number 102. And due to the schedule constraints of today's work session, I will go ahead and stop there, but happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Fuentes?
Thank you. And so, colleagues, I do want to highlight, this is a very important item up for our consideration that has been years in the making, and I appreciate staff for being brief, but this is what our work sessions are for. They're for us to have a conversation about the policies that are before us, especially when it's something as monumental as the Palm District Plan. As you all see, it covers a good portion of our downtown district, including the Mexican-American cultural corridor. So just so I'm clear for the community, what is before us to vote on, and that is staff is recommending, is Exhibit A, version 2.
That is correct.
Okay. Can you talk us through how does the Palm District Plan and the means for implementation and action ensure the long-term commitment to the evolution of the Red River Cultural District that goes from 15th Street to 4th Street in this newly designed Palm District area?
Sure. There has been a lot of conversation over the last several months, particularly focused on kind of how the plan interacts with the Red River Cultural District. You will find many of the recommendations that are included in Exhibit A that were forwarded by the Planning Commission Working Group relate to strengthening the language in the plan in support of the Red River Cultural District, as well as much of the language in the companion resolution that will be considered on Thursday provides specific direction to city staff, primarily within the Economic Development Department, but also within the Planning Department to undertake activities in the short term, providing sort of urgent critical support to the Red River Cultural District in terms of regulations and incentives, both.
So we're all committed to ensuring the viability and sustainability of the Red River Cultural District, and as part of that, Council previously took action on creating the preservation overlay. And can you talk us through the timeline for when that will come back?
I think there's discussion ongoing about a timeline that will be inserted into the resolution, but the conversations with Economic Development Department staff, who I can also bring up to answer this question also if I screw it up, but will be to provide a regular every 3-month progress report on progress towards developing and applying that cultural overlay and to get it created and applied, particularly within the Red River District as quickly as possible next year.
So our Economic Development Department is available? Thank you.
I'll bring up Donald Jackson.
And just to put a lens on this, colleagues, what I am concerned is that we have live music venues, the heart and soul of our city, that are at risk of displacement if we don't prioritize and get this overlay expedited and into implementation as quickly as possible. So can you please talk us through what work has been done?
Good morning. Yes, Donald Jackson, Economic Development Department. We've actually been working on this for some time. This was triggered by some council resolutions last year, the same ones that led to the creative space definition changes that were voted on last week. But it also calls for a variety of regulatory and incentive programs for creative spaces and live music venues, including specifically an overlay for the Red River Cultural District. So we have been working on this for some time. We're definitely intending to get this in front of y'all as fast as possible. The main the main considerations would be trying to do that in a way that's integrated with the rest of these policies and programs, like the location enhancement program, creating a general process for creative space overlays, and having the Red River Cultural District be sort of the first pilot of that. And we would just want to make sure we have enough time for community input on those programs. Our intent is to try and get this completed by spring of 2024, but we just want to make sure that we don't set expectations unrealistically in case community input takes longer or there's revisions that need to be done.
Thank you. Is my understanding, Councilor Qadri, that you intend to bring forward amendments to address these issues?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, and then lastly, my question is around the Rainy Street Fund. So we know that there was a fund established with the development that was taking place in the Rainy Street area. A decade ago, there was supposed to be development fees that went into that fund to help with the preservation of our Mexican American community. Can you please tell us the status of that fund?
Sure. So that the leadership on the conversations around that fall under our Financial Services Department and Parks and Recreation Department that did provide a memo back to Council in fall of 2022 outlining an engagement process that the Parks and Recreation Department had undertaken to receive feedback and input on projects that should be that funding should be used for. And we will need to follow up prior to Thursday to get additional information about sort of what the follow-up since that fall memo was provided.
Can we please include that memo in the backup for this item?
Sure.
And colleagues, my understanding is that $200,000 each year is supposed to go into that fund. So how much funds do we have?
And I can't answer that question off the top of my head at today's meeting. We'll try to get an answer
I want to
to
flag
you for
this,
Thursday.
for our Latino community, there was a fund established. We know that Rainy Street was a predominantly Mexican American community. Rainy Street has certainly changed in the last decade. The fund was established for preservation projects for our Mexican American community, and the community wants to know what happened with these funds, what have been done. And so I want to make sure that we have an answer for them. And if we can have that information by Thursday, that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there was one other question. There was a minority report that was submitted as part of the plan. Can we also include that in the backup, please?
Yeah, we can. And there is, for folks that are sort of reviewing the materials right now, the Palm District Plan does have a Speak Up Austin page, speakupboston.org/Palm District, that has all of the backup reports that went into the planning process, including the backup report that was provided by Martha Cotera based on her focused engagement work with East Austin communities is available on that Speak Up page, but we will also make sure to get it included in backup.
Thank you. Thank you.
I believe Councilmember Kelly was next. And by the way, I'm steering the ship now. The mayor has stepped off the dais.
We need to get you like a captain's hat.
We'll look into it.
Thank you for the recognition, Mayor Pro Tem. I do believe that this is very important, as we have been working on it since 2019, which predicates my time on council also. And so we have some really important decisions to make. Councilmember Kadri, I'm really looking forward to seeing your amendments. I'd like plenty of time to review them, so I'm eager to see what you're going for with the overlay and Chapter 380 agreements. And I do have questions related to Councilmember Ryan Alter's motion sheet that he just passed out, but I'll wait until he talks about that to bring them up. So thank you very much for the time.
Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Ryan Alter.
Thank you very much. I just handed out some items that we've been meeting with Councilmember Kadri's office about. There's language in the Palm District Plan about, we've looked at a lot of elements, but there are still a few things we want to look to in the future. And so this is just an attempt to enumerate some of those things as we have future conversations about the Palm District for items of consideration. And I'm not going to read the whole thing you have in front of you, but I wanted to give it to you in as advance as possible so that if you have any questions or concerns or recommendations, you could bring those our way. And I think here's the first one of those.
Hi, yeah, thank you again for that recognition. So here in your motion sheet, you move to amend item 102, directing the city manager to begin a second phase of work on the East Downtown Vision Plan, which includes, in the first bullet point there, is plans for public safety infrastructure.
Yes.
Which I definitely think is important, especially given the current situation with our police headquarters downtown not being great. I've been in that building when the plumbing's not working and the toilet's back up, and it's absolutely awful. I do not recommend. But I would like to know more from our public safety people about how that specific bullet point impacts past planning related to the moving of APD headquarters. So I'd be interested in that in particular, because I know that there have been previous plans that have been laid out, but I don't know how it would be impacted by what you're bringing forward.
Right, and this is really to integrate those discussions with any future discussions for the Palm District, whether it is APD headquarters or you look at the fire station and EMS station and the conversations about relocating those to an area that is still very serviceable to downtown is it only gets harder by the day to find a spot for those to go. And so I think it behooves us to have those conversations as advanced as possible. But yeah, we can figure out how to make everything mesh.
Right, and perhaps it's something the city manager can speak to on Thursday, just for clarity, because in my humble little council member opinion, I do believe that when we are planning for more density in areas that are underserved by public safety, that it is very important to rope that into the plans so that we don't increase response times from other parts of town and pull resources from areas that were intended to have uses for them in the first place. So thank you very much for flagging that.
Absolutely.
I'll read the rest of this as soon as I have some time, and thank you for bringing it forward.
You got it.
By chance, are you prepared to speak to the public safety location conversations today, or should we just flag
Not that particular item. We did ask a similar question of financial services staff after the November 29th meeting, several months ago now. And my understanding is that plans were underway but had not been sort of released in a format that we could share yet, but that may have changed. So we will make sure to follow up on that prior to Thursday's meeting.
Sounds good. I appreciate that being flagged. Councilmember Fuentes.
Yes, I just had a quick comment, and I wish I could take credit for this idea, but this came from the community, that we're going through a convention center renovation, that might be an appropriate place for us to have a renovated fire EMS and police station, or at least a fire EMS station. So I wanted to put that out there for city staff to think about and to consider, since we will be rebuilding our convention center. It might make sense to replace it there.
We'll certainly look into that. Any other comments or questions on this particular item? I think that does it. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. My intent now is to move into the briefings in the order in which they're posted. So as we're getting ready to talk about the I-35 Cap and Stitch project, I will just flag, we have an item for fee waivers, the Turkey Trot in Circle C. There's not a whole lot of events that happen in the southern part of District 8, but we are fulfilling the rest of our allocated budget for this fee waiver, and I think there's going to be about $772 left if anyone has extra money they need to use before September 30th. We'll double check on that number.
I'm more than happy to provide $300 to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, got 300. All right, we're down to 472. 472, anyone? Okay.
Whatever's left
All
at
right.
the end of the day, we've got extra, so I'm happy to cover whatever. She may be about to make it cheaper for me. I don't know.
I appreciate that. I'll post to the message board and I'll let y'all argue over who wants to help us out. Councilmember Allison Alter.
Thank you for raising that. I wanted to, I'm already contributing to your item. So I wanted to add $500 to, I think it's Councilmember Velasquez's DSC SACE fee waiver. If the clerk could note that, please. I forget what number it is, but thank you.
All right. Any other comments before we move into briefings?